Hello, I'm Scarlett. I am the ASL Program Director here out at Sherwood. I am thrilled to see so many faces out here. Thank you for taking an interest, being here because we were told you had to show up. There are lots of different kinds of people here for different reasons, and I'm grateful for all of them. My vision is to take this fair, just like Buck was talking about. He's been a dream to work with, you guys. We want to put Sherwood on the map for being accessible, to having equitable access to our deaf and deafblind patrons. And this is how we do that. We make sure that if there's a need, a safety need, a customer service need, just a social need, we can talk to people, we can communicate with them in ways that make sense to them, not just us. I also find that before I learned ASL, I had a really hard time if somebody like deaf walked up to me or if I encountered a deaf person, and I find this all over the place. The instinct is to freeze and go, I don't know how to talk to you. And I see that everywhere. It's a very common reaction to have, and that's one of the things that this is for, is to go, wait, they're just people. And you know what? Deaf people don't need interpreters nearly as much as hearing people do, because deaf people navigate the world all day, every day, without interpreters. So when you see an interpreter, understand that they're there to serve you as much as the deaf person, and facilitate communication. When you don't have an interpreter, you guys can take on the ability to navigate situations and to offer, like I said, social interaction. Customer service help out here is a big thing, and safety is our biggest concern. Amanda is absolutely wonderful. We're so excited to bring her out here. She offered last year to come help us and make our fair more accessible and, frankly, more fun for a lot more people. I'm going to turn it over to her. We're not going to use the PowerPoint. She's going to follow it and do everything with signs. We have two interpreters, like Mindy said. They're not going to be facing you. Amanda will. Eyes on her.
So are you not using the laptop?
No. Thank you.
There's some technical.
Okay, then I need to take it back.
Yeah, that's appreciated. Thank you. All right, Amanda.
Hello, everyone. I am so thrilled to see all of you here. And I've noticed that more people are showing up than we expected. So that says a lot about how much you guys are motivated to learn about deaf and deafblind and hard of hearing people. And I am so honored to be here and give you guys a presentation about this important topic. I want to introduce myself first. I am Amanda Tweet. This is my sign name. And you can just call me Amanda. My last name sounds, it's a little different. And if you don't pronounce how you pronounce my last name is Tweet. So my role here is, well, actually I have a few different hats that I wear. I am an advocate for the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind community. And I work all around Central Texas. We cover about 30 different counties in the Central Texas area. And our office has a contract with the Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services under the Texas Health and Human Services Department. So that's how that goes. I'm also the CEO for Access Vine. And Access Vine, of course you're going, what's that? Well, let me tell you. And if you notice that I keep leaving my center stage area to go into the computer to go through my slides. So Access Vine is a training and outreach service. And we also provide training to state agencies, community service providers, various kinds of festivals. Really just, it runs the gamut. There's a whole range of different kinds of things that we provide training for. Stores, companies that are like, Forbes list, Fortune 500 type companies, Fortune 1000 companies, national level sales, providers. We provide training for them. about how to engage with the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind community and be inclusive, and sensitivity training for all of that. We also provide ASL translation services for websites and make sure that those websites are accessible for deaf-blind people who rely on ASL to understand the content. Oh yes, if you could click that, appreciate you. So now I'm going to tell you a little more about myself. I am deaf. I'm a woman. I have come up against all kinds of challenges and struggles in my life, and nothing has stopped me yet. I've been through a lot. I went to public school with all hearing people. I have hearing friends. I have deaf friends. I have interpreters that are also my friends. I have learned a lot from my interpreters as I have grown up. I did not go to a deaf school. I was pretty much the only deaf person in a school full of hearing people. So, hold on, let me look at my slides, sorry. And really my journey and my background in advocacy has been almost 15 years long at this point. I've been giving trainings and workshops all this time, and really this has become my passion to teach people how to provide access. Oh, I'm going to tell you my why now. My why is that having barriers to access and
barriers with mental health and education have caused a lot of challenges with different groups. And so that's why we have set up Access Fine to try to bridge those gaps and try to get better communication access. And really, it starts with y'all. Just having a basic understanding of what a deaf person's needs are. And the more you guys know, the more the deaf person's experience will be valued and appreciated. Okay, let's see here. So now I actually want to ask you guys a question. I'm curious. What is y'all's goal for this workshop? Anybody want to raise your hand? We'll go ahead and start with you in the back. Knowledge. Okay. Anyone else? You.
Knowledge and me wanting to understand more on how to communicate with the more disabled. Plus
Wonderful. Great. You?
Knowledge. I have hearing impaired. My mother is deaf. I'm a healthcare provider by career, by work, and it adds to my skills.
Nice. That's really wonderful. I'm glad that you've taken this workshop. You.
Communication and a better patron experience.
Oh, better patron experience. Wonderful. All right, you in the back?
Enjoyable. They come here to have a good time and they want to enjoy their time here. So if we can help communicate better, it makes it more enjoyable.
Oh, yes. Wonderful. So I've noticed that I'm actually copying the interpreter, and maybe you're saying, oh, well, why? Well, there's actually some deaf people here in the audience, so that if the interpreter is speaking, I'm actually going to sign what they're saying as well, so that they can know what the people in the audience are saying. Because, if the interpreter is sitting here in front of me, and there's somebody speaking in the audience, I can't necessarily see what they're saying. So me copying the interpreter helps provide more communication access. You with the hat in the back.
I work in education and I want to be able to help my students if I encounter a deaf student. And also to help people
That's
feel
wonderful.
welcome here.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
To help people feel more welcome here.
And also to help people here feel more welcome.
Exactly. Yeah, deaf people are just like everyone else. You know? We do just regular everyday things just like everybody. You know? Play with the kids. We, grow up going to school, doctor's visits, all the basic life experiences, the same as everybody else. I have 2 adult children myself. My son and my daughter. The oldest is 22. Wow, jeez. And the other one just turned 20 2 days ago. So, and been married for about 23 years. So, my husband's in the back over there. His name's David. He's got the orange jacket on. Hello. Hey. Okay. So, I just want to show you that everybody's human. We are all humans. We have human responses. And sometimes there's people that are different from ourselves. So, what is the goal here? The goal is with deaf, blind, hard of hearing people to feel valued, to feel included, especially during this festival. Outside of the festival, in the workplace, hopefully you guys will take what you learned from here and also apply it to your everyday lives. I have a habit of doing the laptop myself, so let's see. So we will be identifying different strategies on how to communicate with the deaf and hard of hearing and the deaf-blind community. We will also be talking a lot about different stories, experiences. I'm going to share my personal journey with y'all and different things that I've seen. And I will give you guys some different identifiers. I wish that the PowerPoint was working right now so I could show you this. It would help you kind of have that connection. But I will actually be sharing the PowerPoint with y'all at the end so that you guys can have access to this information on your own. So we will have some different categories. And you notice I keep saying over and over, deaf, blind, hard of hearing. There's so many different variations of that. So maybe somebody will be hard of hearing, but they don't sign, or maybe they have some hearing loss. There's all different levels of it. Or maybe they need more communication access. So let me show you a picture. Let's see how I can do this. Well, before I show you the picture, I want to actually ask you guys a question. How do you know? How do you identify if somebody is deaf or hard of hearing? You.
I know a couple signs for asking if someone is deaf or mute. So
if you don't mind, can we rephrase that before you ever approach them? Let's say you just see a person. How do you identify if they're deaf or hard of hearing?
Usually if I want to socialize with the person that I think I might be good friends with, I'm a little antisocial. Then again, it's kind of normal for kids my age to be left alone, want to be left alone, do their own thing during school and all. Since school, it's a natural way for us to try and communicate and be with others and do our schoolwork. But if I would try to communicate with them normally and I would try to communicate with them normally, and if they start speaking sign language, I'll try and ask if they're either mute or deaf or hard of hearing.
Okay. I'm happy that you shared your experience about how you would approach somebody who's deaf. That's very normal. But remember, it's okay to share your fears or experience. This is supposed to be a place where you can kind of share that. It's a safe place. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. Just remember that, okay?
Well,
While we're talking about this process, you have a lot of points that are made about how to communicate, but who else was raising their hand about how do you identify somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing? You with the hoodie in the middle there?
You don't.
Sorry, I just realized that there's three people. Okay. So the woman with the black hair, I see you've got this thing on your shirt. I can't read it. It says something. Yes, you.
you can look for a cochlear implant or a hearing aid.
Oh, hold on 1 second. I just realized. Are there any deaf people in the crowd that need me to sign? None. You, just one. Do you want to sit over here closer so you can see the interpreter? Oh, I can copy. I can sign up there. Okay, thanks. Thanks for patience while we do some movement, just the logistics up here. So, I'm sorry. What were you saying again?
You can look for like a hearing aid or a cochlear implant to identify.
Yes, that is one way to know if a person's possibly deaf or hard of hearing, if they have a cochlear implant. What's another way that you could identify or know if somebody's deaf or hard of hearing? You in the back?
If you see someone communicating with someone else non-verbally.
Yes, exactly. But what if there's an interpreter? You know, an interpreter tends to be practicing signing a lot, so maybe you can mistake them as being deaf. They may not sign all the way if,
The idea is to sign at all times if you're an interpreter, so that way you're always accessible. And if any deaf people were to be in the area, that they would know that person uses the same language that they do. But even if there are no deaf people around, the idea is to continue to practice using the language and have that use it at all times.
I love it when I see interpreters signing even though they're not working. Any other identifiers? Any way that you can identify somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing? You in the back with your hand raised?
I do it when I see that they're not reacting to normal sounds, like normal sounds that are around everybody else. And you notice they're like just not reacting as well as like a loud boom or a loud bang.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that is a great idea. So I'm just playing with this idea of what if. So what if, what are they called? They're the little yellow, white. What are they? The ear plugs, or maybe they have some plugs in so they can't hear at the time at that moment. Or maybe they've got some ear pods and listen to music. Does that mean they're deaf just because they can't hear at the moment? So it's pretty common to see people not respond if they have those in. They could have their ear pods in. Maybe they're just intentionally ignoring you. You in the back.
I don't. I let them tell me. I treat them as if they're a normal person because they are. And I let them
Oh. Exactly. So I'm going to show you guys a picture. All right. Tell me, can everybody see the picture?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me which two people are deaf or hard of hearing. You can't? Okay.
I'm just assuming based on what I see there, the person in the blue shirt on the top row,
This guy?
yes. And
Why?
because it looks like he's gesturing which could be interpreted as him using sign.
All right. But you gesture too.
True.
Yeah, I'm not meaning to give you a hard time, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that you never know. So don't assume. That's kind of my point here. Don't just assume that somebody's deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf blind. You know? Because that's what is called an invisible disability. You can't see it. So whenever I go to the grocery store, and my mom might be with me because she's visiting or whatever. So I notice my mom will get really, aggressive and be like, she's deaf, and she'll tell other people while she's behind me, and I don't notice because I can't hear. But she'll be, yelling or saying, "I'll move, get out of the way, excuse me," while I'm pushing the cart. I can't see what's behind me, so I'm just, going about my shopping experience. And I'm just taking my sweet time, trying to figure out, what food I want, what kind of cake I want or whatever. And little did I realize that there's a person yelling at me behind me. Oh, I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear you. So that happens a lot because you can't see that. Unless, you tell the person behind me was saying, "Excuse me, I need to get around," but I didn't know they were there and they started yelling. I wasn't intentionally ignoring them. Maybe they could have thought that. But the deafness is one of the most common disabilities out there. There's approximately 48 million people who have some sort of hearing loss in the US alone. And there are 1 billion people who have a disability in the entire world. So there's a lot of different types of things out there. There's the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, I believe, is what that stands for. Yes, the CDC, they got those statistics from 10 years ago. And that was because of new technology that enabled that, different headphones that have allowed for people with hearing loss to be able to really just experience that a bit better. And there's a lot of people, because of those headphones being so loud, it's actually caused people's hearing loss to deteriorate even more. The baby boomer generation, senior citizens, as people get older, there's 48 million people in that whose hearing loss is starting to decay. Senior citizens, their hearing, they have what's called degenerative hearing loss. And yeah, it's just good to know and get a hearing test to get that checked. I believe that they do offer free hearing tests at clinics. You can go there and get that done. Let me see here. Okay. So that number, 48 million, that's approximately 16% of people. So it's a rough estimate, but that could mean, 16% of your kids have some sort of hearing loss, of your guests here at the fair. And so it's good to have an access plan to be able to help facilitate them, when meeting with somebody who has a hearing loss. About 2/3 of senior citizens who are over the age of 70 have some sort of hearing loss. Let me see, I'm trying to read this here. About 85% of those people are not actually, or of those hearing loss cases are actually untreated. So maybe they need hearing aids or something like that, but they don't have the right kind or they don't have them at all. There's a wide range of possibilities there.
So treated, you have to be careful with how you use that term, because I personally, I don't require being fixed. You know, if I was born again, I would want to be deaf. That I've been deaf since I was 1. I became sick. I had spinal meningitis, and my fever went really high, and that medication, and FYI, I was very sick to the point of almost dying. And the medication that saved my life has a high chance of causing either blindness, various disabilities really, deafness also being one of them. And of course I survived, obviously, but I ended up deaf. Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to be touching briefly on 4 different categories that we're going to discuss. First being, what does deaf mean? What does hard of hearing mean? And deaf with a capital D, big D deaf. And what does that mean? That means that that person uses sign language, they're part of the deaf community, they have deaf culture. You know, they have a community and they have a strong understanding of their culture, of deaf history. And capital D also means they depend on visual communication. And they tend to not use their voice. Now, deaf, just regular lowercase d deaf, tends to mean someone that maybe has a tiny bit of hearing ability still left. They will depend on visual communication as well, but they don't sign per se. They're not part of the deaf community. They're more part of the mainstream society. And they go to public school. They'll use hearing aids or a cochlear implant. Also, they will struggle with being accepted in the deaf community. Another term that you might hear is late deafened. And that means a person who, you know, throughout life was a hearing person until at some point in their life they experienced something that caused their hearing to degrade. And that could have happened at any point in their life. That varies widely. And you can usually, you know, someone will identify themselves saying, oh, well, I grew up hearing and I became deaf later in life. People who are late deafened will tend to, again, there's a variety of styles. Some will sign, some don't. And really they tend to function, you know, in the hearing world. Next slide, please. Oh. Now, hard of hearing. People who are hard of hearing, you know, some of them might know how to sign, some don't. And some might try to learn sign language, but they will struggle because not everybody can understand, you know, and learn sign language easily. It can be tough for many hard of hearing people because they kind of swing between both worlds, you know, with the deaf community and the hearing community. My husband David is hard of hearing, and he signs, but he can also, you know, interact with hearing people. You know, he gets the best of both worlds. He can swing between both, as it were. Hard of hearing people will tend to rely on hearing input more than visual input, but not all of hard of hearing people are the same, of course. You know, again, you have people who have hearing loss. Myself, I am profoundly deaf. I cannot hear anything, even if a train or an airplane went right by me. Like, I could feel the vibrations, of course, but I hear absolutely nothing. And just because, relying on how much you hear doesn't mean that that affects your knowledge. I'm not any less smart or capable than a hearing person. My level of hearing has nothing to do with my brain and how I receive information. I'm no different from hearing people in that respect. It's hard for many hearing people to understand the lived experience of a deaf person. So that's one big challenge. Hearing people will always ask us, like, why don't you have a cochlear implant? Why don't you use a hearing aid? You don't want to hear? Like, they don't understand because they can't imagine life without the ability to hear. But guess what? Life is great. I can't hear anything, but I don't need to be fixed. That's part of who I am. And I did try using various tools to aid my hearing. When I was 10, I did get a cochlear implant, and it did not work. All I could hear was, everything sounded very robotic. It was like beeping, and there was just this continuous beeping, and I tried for 3 years. I went to the audiologist and the speech therapist. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and finally, by the age of 13, I was done. I said, you know what? I am deaf. I am going to be okay with it. I'm going to come to terms with my hearing loss. So every individual has their own journey. And it's not our place to tell a deaf person how and what they should do with their life. Let me read this. Hang on. So within the American population at large, auditory injuries represent the third most common physical medical condition.
Mindy, can you start?
Yeah, back that up. Within the American population at large, auditory injuries represent the third most common physical medical condition, topped only by arthritis and heart disease. In the military, it is estimated that auditory injury is rising 13 to 18% annually. An estimated 60% of returning service members have hearing loss and or tinnitus. So that is why it is important to make sure that our services are ready when we approach a deaf or hard of hearing person and approach them for the first time, determining how to communicate with somebody, and communications with deaf and hard, the number of deaf and hard of hearing people is going up.
So now I want to go ahead and take a moment to focus on deaf culture. What is deaf culture? So deaf culture is the deaf experience, the life journey of a deaf person. So the term deaf, it's actually a good thing. The term deaf is used as a term of pride. It's not an insult. It's part of our identity. And don't be afraid to insult somebody. Don't be afraid that you're going to insult somebody by saying, "Are you deaf?" And they'll be like, "Yes, I am deaf." Many people get really nervous or afraid of that because some labels, some labels are considered offensive. Some people choose to use the label for themselves as deaf, hard of hearing, what have you, and that's their decision. Now, the term hearing impaired, it's not really well received amongst the deaf community. It's considered to be offensive. Because hearing impaired means it's like my hearing is broken. Now, yes, that is true, but I'm not broken, So kind of try to avoid using the term hearing impaired with the exception of if that person decides to identify that way themselves. If that's how they identify themselves, that's their choice. Let's see here. One second, my PowerPoint is very tiny, so I gotta look at this over here. So deaf culture tends to be cultural and language. So you need access to language, whether it's through spoken language, reading and writing language. People just assume that if people sign ASL, they can read English clearly. That's not always the case. People who are native ASL users, they don't really have a lot of exposure to the English language. Some people can read and some people can sign sentences, but some people actually need some people need somebody to actually interpret the written language for them. And that's why certain things like websites should have better access and have ASL interpreted messages for their pages. So we are working with customers and we are trying to give better access for that. And we're finding volunteers or staff, interpreters to work the front desk so that they can have better. Oh, we will actually have deaf people on staff so that whenever deaf customers come in, they can have a better experience. Oh, we actually encourage most companies to have somebody who can sign at the front desk so that they can better service those deaf customers.
ASL and
ASL as well as LSM are sign languages used.
ASL and LSM are sign languages that are used commonly. So what is LSM? It's actually Mexican Sign Language. Did you guys know that there are over 200 different sign languages in the world? Yeah, that's far out, right? So if I were to go to Europe, for example, and I was to meet somebody who was deaf in Europe, their sign language would be different than what I use. They would use what's called BSL, that's British Sign Language. Really interesting. And one thing that I have found that's pretty interesting as well is if I'm having a conversation with somebody, a deaf person, for example, in London, I will notice that that person tends to have the same experience, that deaf experience of discrimination and difficulty with access to communication. So even though they're from a different country, we have a shared deaf experience and had similar struggles through that language access. And so that's why we have an organization that's called the World Federation of the Deaf. And it's one organization, but it has people from all over the world that come together to support each other and to fight for access to language. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So one thing about deaf people is we have a lot of nuances. You know, like different behavior norms. You know, for example, this, waving a hand like this. It means that I'm trying to get somebody's attention. Or, for example, we might turn the lights on and off. That's a way to get people's attention as well. Or maybe you're trying to call on a full group of people to get everybody's attention. Sometimes we'll use different strategies. For example, we'll do this, you know, moose antlers, and then everybody copies and everybody follows, and now I have everybody's attention. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, okay? We're going to do a little bit of activity. All right, if I do this, I need everybody to do it as fast as they can. Copy me, okay? You guys got to do it. All right. All right. Now, then this is a good way for me to see if you're paying attention. You know, it's a very visual thing, and that's a good way to get attention. Okay, so let me see here. Can I use this chair? Is that all right?
Please.
Or the words on the screen are like this big. They're itty bitty. Okay. So anyways, behavior norms. Some people do speak. You know, like me. I can speak. Oh, thank you. Yay! Oh, that's so much better. Oh, yeah, it was tough on that bench. Yes, thank you. So, back to behavioral norms. Some people can't speak, like me. You know, I have what's called the deaf voice. You know, I don't really know how to describe my voice, but I'd say about 50% of people can understand what I'm saying. The other 50% are like, what is she? What is she talking another language? I can't understand what she's saying. You know. Some people, they speak really loudly because they can't hear themselves. So they don't know how loud they're being. Sometimes, I cannot emphasize this enough. But I've gotten myself in trouble before because I've talked so loud, especially if I'm like really, really passionate about the topic. You know, and I really want to make my point. My voice will go up and my kids will be like, Mom, stop yelling at me. So, you know. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You know, it's not like I'm angry. I'm just, you know, I really want to get my point across. So my volume increases. You know, maybe there's some people who, maybe you have some guests here that talk really loud. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily being rude. Maybe not. But some people do take it personally if you ask them to calm down or to lower their voice. So consider that. Also, if you notice maybe a person is if they're indicating and pointing at their ears, usually that'll be them trying to tell you that they're deaf or they can't hear you. You know, and then it's common for a hearing person to be, oh, I'm sorry, and then just walk away. That's not what we're trying to tell you. We're not trying to tell you to run away. We're just trying to let you know that we are deaf so that we can kind of set up that expectation for how to communicate with us. Maybe you can get a notepad and write back and forth. You know, take your time with that customer or person. And there's different levels to all of that. And that person will have their own preference on how they'd like to communicate with you. And it's best to just ask the person, how would you like me to communicate with you? If somebody indicates, you know, points to their ears to let you know that they're deaf, be like, oh, okay, now this is my opportunity to figure out how to best communicate with this individual. Don't just assume that that person would prefer sign, because not all people know sign language. So, yes, you.
I actually had the extreme privilege of working with you last year at the will call window when Linda exhibited excessive grace and poise, watching me try and figure out how to communicate with her as she came into the window. And I think we were trying to find a group discount on a website or something. It was an absolute cluster, but the only way that I knew how to communicate, because she immediately indicated, I can't hear you. And I was like, all right, I have a cell phone. We can text back and forth. And that's exactly what we did. We would write, because, you know, obviously we didn't have scratch paper, but we were just writing notes back to each other. I mean, not in 1192 AD. There were definitely no cell phones at the counter. But we you know, it was the only way, and she was so patient with me, trying to fumble through it, but we got through it, and I think that's actually how we wound up at this juncture, and thank you for coming, because...
Because of that, now we have notepads up front.
Yes! Thank God.
Yay! Oh, that's wonderful. Awesome.
And thank you so much. I really appreciate that story. See, and that, because of that happening, you now have paper. You're ready to write back and forth. And some deaf people will also have a hard time reading. So that's when you want to go and call for one of the ASL interpreters. I don't know. Is there always somebody here, or is it only ASL weekend?
Oh, I'm typically here, but not like every weekend all the time. But I am always available on video call.
And we have your number tacked up at the front now.
Yes.
For emergencies.
You may be.
Oh, that's great. And, if she's on the other side of the festival. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm working on that. Okay?
My pronouns.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I addressed Scarlett incorrectly. If Scarlett is on the other side of the festival and you can't contact Co through, maybe there's poor signal, I don't know how good that is out here, then you can always FaceTime immediately. And do you have FaceTime? Do you have an iPhone? Or do you have an Android? Oh, you have an Android. What program do you use to do video call? Okay. I am not knowledgeable with regard to Android phones, so, but just point being, you can, video call and connect that way, and, have that as an interpreting option to interpret your conversation.
Scarlett's phone number is posted a lot of different places around the fairgrounds, so.
Yeah, Scarlett's number has been given to everyone, and everyone should save that number. Oh, you're so popular. Okay, so now, one thing that I wanted to emphasize is personal space. It is such an important concept. I'm going to tell you a story. It's a funny story. This woman that I work with at the state office, I happened to ask her if I could take this item that she was giving out. She had a bunch of things that she was giving. I said, "Is it all right if I use that to, it was like a sliding window kind of thing for like a cubicle space." And then later, she said, you give it back to me later. And she approached me for the second time. Would you mind coming here? We're gonna show you, demonstrate this. Okay, so I'm the hearing person, right? She's a man. She was literally right in my face. And I was like, I'm trying to read her lips and I'm going cross-eyed. I'm like, what? I'm like, whoa, back up, please. So I can see your body language and your expressions. Whispering sweet nothings in your ear over here. Yeah, it's no, back up, please. So just be mindful of personal space. And deaf people, especially deaf-blind people, will depend on tactile communication. They will communicate with touch. So that means that they're going to maybe touch your arm or a leg or a shoulder or something like that, or maybe tap on you on your arm like this. And that means that they're nodding, as it were. They're letting you know that they are saying yes, yes, yes. And sometimes a deaf person might tap on you to, I'm going to touch you here, like that. I'll tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, do you mind if I go get some water? I'll be right back. That's why I'm touching his arm. And that's okay. But when you approach a deaf person from behind, you're gonna scare 'em, okay? Me, I will jump 30 feet in the air. So just make sure that you're in their like visual space, you know, or even if you're in front of me, like you can wave at me from the side, that's preferable. And deaf people do show pretty big expressions. We can be very, very expressive. And people often wonder what that's about. And that's a linguistic tone. That's like, we don't have a vocal tone. We use our expressions instead of vocal tone. Oh, okay. If you have, I don't know if you guys have a police group or
Sobriety
or if you guys have a sobriety test before you leave the site. But I know, often with deaf people that like walk the line sobriety test, we will fail that test because the equilibrium is off. So if I close my eyes, I will automatically fall off to the left because I cannot walk in a straight line without my eyes open. Even with, look at, not even one step. I made such a pretty PowerPoint, you guys. I wanted to show it off a little. Huh?
I love you.
What?
We can put it in the video if we provide it.
Awesome. So, there are 4 things. Hold on, let me rephrase this. There are 4 deaf culture issues that impact service. Attitude. Attitude. So for example, when a deaf person lets you know that they're deaf, if I get a response like an eye roll or oh my god, not another deaf person, or oh, you're deaf? Okay, and? Oh, it's another comment that I've seen is, oh, I'm so sorry, you can't hear. Oh, just, look. But a better response, an example of that, is to, make sure that you're showing respect. Is just if a person tells you that they're deaf, just go, oh, thank you for letting me know. Or, hi, how can I help you? Mental note, you're deaf, got it, what can I do for you? That type of approach to customer service is just, be open. Keep an open mind and an open heart. Don't assume that that person needs an interpreter off the bat. Sometimes, I just need to know where the bathroom is. I don't need an interpreter to know where the bathroom is. I'm just, don't run and go get Scarlett. I just want to know where the bathroom is. Just point, The second issue that can impact service is communication. Be open to communicating. How, what, where, when, who. There are so many different ways to communicate. And maybe, not with a tin can and a shoestring, okay? That's not a good option. But you can use your cell phone to text. You can use gestures. Here, the shower, right? Oh, it's over there, right? Or bathroom. Where's the bathroom, right? It's kind of obvious. It's easy to understand, right? And make it fun. There's no limits. Communication is so key and to avoiding misunderstandings or, we don't want to insult our customers. and inclusion. Inclusion makes that person feel valued. What are some examples of how we can make a deaf person feel included? You there?
Give them the same experience you would everyone.
That's a good one.
What was that?
Oh, he said, give them the same experience that you would give everyone else. Yep. What other things will we do to provide inclusion? In the back, the green jacket?
Just put forth the effort.
Make the effort. Yes. That is all that matters. Make an effort. Okay?
Having paper available.
Having paper ready. That's a good example. So suppose you're performing, some big show. How do you make sure that the deaf person feels included? The red jacket in the back?
Have an interpreter.
Have an interpreter, yeah. So, what else? What else? Okay.
I'm an entertainer, so when we do our show, if an audience member who is not deaf has a funny hat on or says something, we are improvising and we might include that person and make a playful fun, right? So when we have an interpreter with us, we also sometimes will say funny things about the hands moving and, oh, we're so glad to have a special guest today, and include them. Is this appropriate? Is this good?
It depends on the person. I can't speak for everyone. But I think that's cool because you're really paying attention to the sign language, and that's a good way to spotlight and bring awareness.
Yes.
It can be misinterpreted or viewed as kind of making fun of them. So you want to be careful with that. And really the best way is to say, hey, what's the sign for what? Or, how do you spell this word? Or what's the sign for this thing? And then kind of sign it back, and that they will appreciate that kind of inclusion. But I appreciate the recommendation of having an interpreters and, pulling people in from the audience. And if you notice that there are some deaf people signing like a song, during, like in the audience during the show, that is really a great indication that they are into the show and they're signing along, with the song. And you may notice that, I would recommend, ask them, hey, would you mind joining me on stage and sign with us? Because that's another way of being really inclusive. So that's, I always encourage you, oh, wait, you had your hand up? Yeah, no, yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had your hand up. I just wanted to add a story of my own personal experience from as an interpreter's perspective. So one time I was interpreting for a drag show, and I've worked with this person a few times before, and I was like, okay, they messed with me as an interpreter. And the second time, they noticed, oh, same interpreter, okay. So they picked on me again, and then the audience, I noticed, they actually noticed a deaf person in the audience. So through me, they found their deaf audience member, and then they started, picking on them. So they became included in the show. The drag performer focused on them because they're like, oh, who's this interpreter, haha, and, stealing my spotlight, all of that. And then they realized, oh, it's you, this deaf person in the audience, you're the problem. And they started picking on them. So that was, a really enjoyable experience. I appreciated that. Was that deaf person enjoying themselves in the audience? They were laughing? Oh, okay, great. Yeah, because that's another thing I wanted to mention. It'll depend on the person, how they receive that feedback from you, that input. Like growing up as a hard of hearing person, you know, somebody might experience a lot of bullying or being laughed at, and they will often say that they feel lost. So maybe if they, you know, miss the message, that doesn't work out well. So if somebody's hard of hearing, you know, you want to make sure that that they understand the message clearly behind what you're doing.
If you have a song or something that you've included into your performance, having a rhythm, having clapping or stomping your feet, that's absolutely a more inclusive way to bring in the deaf audience so they can participate even if they don't know the lyrics.
Yes.
Yeah, for example, everybody clap with me. See, and now that's an example of, oh, hey, okay, here's the beat, you know? It's something, you know, you can do during songs, in a group activity, and it's a way for everybody to kind of be included on the same beat. So that's a pretty cool example. It's really, really interesting. There's so many different creative ways to do this. You can include drums. Oh, deaf people love drums. You know, that loud, booming bass. Maybe if you have some space in the front row, that would actually make it easier so that they can feel that rhythm and that bass, that beat. It's highly recommended that for ASL access to have the deaf people kind of up front. You know, maybe have a specific ASL section in the front row available. And be considerate of different accommodations during the process. All right, I gotta tell you a story. All right, and got a couple different topics to discuss. So, I was flying to another state for a presentation I was gonna do, and I'd say, you know, I've been flying all around for, you know, about 10 years, air travel, you know, I'm very familiar with it. But I will never forget this one time, the front desk, just the way that they made me feel. So I got up to the front desk, and there was baggage claim there. And, you know, I'm just in my own world. I'm thinking about the presentation, things I've got to do, you know. And I was thinking about all this stuff, and then the person at the front desk was trying to talk to me. And I forgot to tell them and let them know that I was deaf beforehand. So I'm off in my own little world, and she's asking to see my ticket and just made this face to me. And she said, hold on one second. So she got on the phone and she started talking to this person. And I was looking at her. Is there something wrong? Is there something wrong with my flight? Did it get canceled, delayed? What's wrong? And at this point, I'm just so lost. And once again, you know, they indicate, hold on. And they go like this. I'm going to walk with you down there, okay? Hold on. And what? I just want to go. I didn't ask for help. I don't need accompaniment. Like, I don't. You don't need to escort me. Please, just, you know. And I was trying to be nice, so I went ahead and texted. I appreciate you trying to help. Thank you, but I don't need somebody to help me. And the person's response was, no. You need my support. You need my help. I'm gonna walk with you. I will not accept no for an answer. So she came around the front desk and she grabbed my hand and tried to force me to walk with her. So I raised my voice and I took my hand away. Ma'am. Hold on. I'm going back and forth between signing and voicing. You know, I've been traveling and I've been flying for 10 years. I am perfectly capable of doing this on my own. Leave me alone. I've done this, you know, 500,000 times. Back off. I can do this. And I did kind of say some bad words there. F off. But I was mad because she had the assumption that a deaf person can't travel on their own. Oh, I was furious. Deaf people can. They can have babies, they can travel, they can do anything. They don't have to just be stuck in their house and can't go out into the real world. It's not like that. They're just like anybody else. Just need some accommodations. That's it. Ooh, I was fired up. Oof. I was shaking. I was so mad. Okay. Anyways, I want to go ahead and take a 15-minute break. Are you guys okay? Or, do you think... Yeah, it's time to eat now, so let's go ahead and take advantage of that.
I don't like this, but personally, I like about
Okay, we're all going to stare at the last person to do this. Okay, that's a fun little activity. I need 2 volunteers. Who wants to volunteer? In the red hat? One more. You, come on.
Sorry, they were selling Girl Scout cookies.
Okay. We're gonna do a role-playing game of how to get a deaf person's attention. I'm gonna give you an example of what a hearing person would typically do, and then we're gonna give an example of the appropriate deaf cultural appropriate thing to do. We're gonna assign each of you a role. Who wants to be deaf? You wanna be deaf? You wanna be deaf? Okay. So you're gonna be deaf, you're gonna be hearing. Okay, well she's already hearing, so whatever. Okay, so what you're gonna do is just do what you would normally do to get somebody's attention. So I don't know if that's say you're standing there staring off into the void, minding my own business. So you are gonna try and get my attention, but use your voice. It's just gonna be fun, okay? It's just gonna be fun. I'm getting your attention. Yes, you're getting my attention. Oh, did you see? She's listening. Like there's all these other people going on, so she's confused because the voice is coming from somewhere else. Like the interpreter is talking, but I'm talking to her. So that means, she looks at me. She made eye contact with me. That was great. Anyway, so you're trying to get my attention, but you don't know that I'm deaf. Okay?
Okay.
Got it? Okay, and then you are going to be next, and I'm going to show you how to get my attention. All right? Got it? Okay. Ready, set, go.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Okay. Thank you, good job. Okay, so now your turn. So I'm going to show you one more. Come here, I'm going to tell you a secret. There's several different ways that you could approach this here. So you pick whatever, okay? Oh, hi, how are you doing? Good. You good? I'm good. So you tap me.
Attention.
Oh. Oh. You have my attention now, okay? Keep going, keep going. This is a great job. Good job, thank you. But yeah, that's an example of how deaf people tend to respond. So, just go ahead, get their attention and start talking, move on with the conversation. The point is that, now I can lip read. That's, I've had many years of lip reading practice. So I know some of the most common phrases. So, if you tried to gesture to me, like, where's the bathroom? Okay, ready? Let's try again. Oh, sorry, you scared me.
Where's the bathroom?
What? Where? I didn't understand you. Oh, bathroom. That way. Yay! Hooray! Yeah, you did a great job. ASL, round of applause. So now you've seen examples of what's appropriate, and you can remember, how to not startle me,
So, a hearing person can usually hear somebody approaching from behind. You can hear the footsteps. But most deaf and hard of hearing people, they can't hear that. So they might get startled whenever approached from behind. So it's good to have a peripheral awareness and try to approach somebody from the sides or the front. So for example, you can start with the arm here, this little tap. And then you can set up communication from there, the conversation. Now, deaf-blind communication is a little bit different. That's a little bit too in-depth, but it is a lot more tactile. There are different ways to approach and to get somebody's attention. So if you're more familiar with that deaf person, then, there might be a little more casual, but it's best to ask them what's their preferred method to get their attention. And don't be afraid to ask. Always ask. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Yay! Okay, so now another example of listening. So you see how I'm nodding as a response? So let's say, excuse me, what's your name? Yeah, what's your name? Huh?
Candy?
Candy, okay. So how Candy actually showed it, it was beautiful. She had a facial expression, she gestured, she pointed, she indicated location. She showed where that is. Point over there, you can, don't be afraid to use your hands. Gestures will help both the deaf and the hard of hearing understand and identify where you're actually referring to. An example of affirmation. So, hearing people tend to respond with, little head nod, that noise, oh, uh-huh. Well, deaf people, they can't hear that. They can't hear those sounds. So it's more eye contact lets me know that you're actually paying attention or engaged. Or maybe you're a really good actor and you're just nodding your head and you're like, oh yeah, no, I get you, but you don't actually understand what I'm saying. Be honest. If you don't understand me, that's fine. Let me know. Don't be afraid. Just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. See this facial expression right here? This look of confusion? I don't get it. Yeah, copy me. You can do that. I don't understand. And this sign is the sign for I don't understand. So copy me right now. Do this. Shake your head back and forth. Little eyebrows. I don't understand. And that's perfect. That's a good response. Okay, so now we're going to do another sign. Let's see. Where's the bathroom? Where is the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Oh yeah, okay. Nice. What's another common phrase, Huh?
Huzzah.
Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!
It's a big one around here.
What's another one? Yeah, huzzah! What's another one? Another phrase. Drink? This is to drink. This is a bar. Bar. How can I help you? And this is with the eyebrows up. Facial expression. So see this shape that I'm making with my hands and kind of roll it outwards. How can I help you? And yeah, with the face, with the smile. The smile is going to show that you're not afraid. Because a lot of times whenever a hearing person approaches us, they kind of freeze. They look like deer in the headlights. You know? This shocked face.
Could you show that again?
The sign, how can I help you?
Yeah.
That's right here.
Lower.
How can I help you? I'm sorry, what were you saying? The interpreter can't hear you.
Difficult to see the back.
Here it is. How can I help you? Perfect. Is that good? Okay. Perfect. Okay, we have a list of different signs, and we're going to provide that. Is that going to be after the training? Okay, great. We'll do that later. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, okay. Maybe you might notice. Oh, yeah, David, he's helping in the back, so that's very nice of him. So now we're going to talk about nonverbal behavior, nonverbal cues. So this is important for successful communication with both hearing and deaf. Eye contact is important. I know maybe you're busy at the moment, but if you're trying to communicate with the person, look them in the eyes. If you're talking and you're looking all over, then they can't see your facial expression, they can't get those nonverbal cues, your body language, you know. And if you're here, if you're leaning in, that shows that you're interested, you know, and if you're looking all around and not actually engaged, that shows that I'm not interested and you're facing the opposite direction. But here, look. How can I help you? I'm making eye contact, I'm leaning forward, and face that person. Try to avoid, I know I can't really avoid it here. It's very, very noisy. There's a lot of background stuff going on. But I do encourage you to maybe find a quiet area, a quiet corner that would help the person understand you better. Maybe they use hearing aids and they prefer a quiet space to communicate. Maybe, hey, come over here. Let's get away from the noise for a second. Maybe the loud music. Also, do not assume that that person understands you. And I'm guilty of bluffing myself if I don't understand. I just kind of want to move it along, you know, and I'll just nod my head, okay, yeah, yeah. But really, I have no idea what they're saying. So you don't assume that we always understand. Also, yeah, yes?
Are there, somebody standing for, are there, what do you call it, shorthand for o'clock and dollars?
Yes.
Like if someone were to ask, what time what time does so-and-so perform at the Greenwood Stage?
Oh, okay, I understand.
And if I were to, I could
That's a
say
good
three,
question.
like 3 fingers, but how do I say o'clock?
Yes.
Like how do I convey time?
So 3, look, right here on my wrist,
And
I'm
the motion?
indicating, I'm pointing at my wrist, and then also the number 3.
Watch.
So you point kind of at your watch area, that's the time, okay?
And then as far as dollars go, if we were conveying an amount,
Okay, so for money, this would be like, this would be $3. I mean, you could just like write it. You can sign this little dollar sign symbol. If you really want to sign it, this is $5. I mean, what's the most common number you probably use here?
we work in denominations of 5 usually.
25, 35.
So I definitely encourage you to finger spell. Practice your finger spelling letters and numbers, and it's a lot of fun. It's really easy to memorize. And then you can dive in. But this is the sign for dollars. I see a lot of hearing people kind of do this. This is easy to remember, you know, money. kind of a simple sign. Dollars is the appropriate. Thank you for that. What's another one you in the back?
I've got a question. I wear a full mask. What is a good way to communicate because they cannot see facial?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yes, masks. I'm very happy you brought that up. So, masks are a huge challenge related to access to language and communication. If somebody's wearing a mask, a lot of times I can't understand. I've got to go another route. Maybe ask them, hey, do you feel comfortable taking your mask off so I can see? Or just go ahead and write back and forth. You have to provide options though. Because if there's a mask and I can't see your lips or anything, there's no clear communication. So I think maybe take a step back, take the mask off, be like, hey, 6 feet away, and then continue the conversation. But if that person is hard of hearing, each individual is going to be different. But I think I'll touch base on lip reading here shortly.
It kind of goes with hers and everything. I think what she's referencing to is those, well, not just the medical mask and everything, but those who are like the Beast of Barnsdale. And they're in massive costumes and you can't, body's covered.
She's got.
I got you, Crystal.
This is what I'm talking about. That kind of mask where it's full, you can't take it off.
That's over my head. It's beautiful. No. Yeah, no, of course. Maybe for successful communication, I guess grab an interpreter or, CART is a company that has services that can go through your phone. So like it does speech to text and they can read what you're saying. There's this thing called FM. It's got a little mic. Maybe you can have that in your suit and that would allow the other person to connect through their device through Bluetooth. Maybe if they have a hearing aid. Really? Yeah, that's a pretty deep one. But yeah, for successful communication access, you got to have different stuff. There's a lot of different options for everything. So. Yes, excuse me?
Oh, I have a question. Do you know the see-through masks with the plastic? Like, is that helpful or?
No, I hate those. No, yeah. Because you can't really see the facial expression or anything through that. But it helps, but they fog up a lot, and you can't really see through them. There's glare. The see-through masks aren't always successful. But if it's necessary, fine. Yeah. Sure. Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, I do like those the clear face mask things. Face shield. Sometimes they've got a little nose thing. Yeah, and they can be a mess too. There's different stuff. It just takes time to get used to it.
How would you, there are some people who aren't as experienced in customer service and may not feel comfortable communicating. So if you would prefer to get help, how would you tell them, one moment please, so that you could give them the customer service that they
That is a very good question, and I appreciate you asking that question. My question to that question is why? Why would they not be comfortable to, talk with me? Did I do something to make you uncomfortable? Because if you show that you are working with me, that will make me, feel like I'm part of the event. So it's, that's kind of signals to me like, I prefer somebody else take care of this. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm different. I don't belong here. So I want you guys to, keep working to get through it. And, if you work to go through it, then you will become more comfortable. And I completely understand, you're learning new things, new communication system, a new way, to interact with somebody, but it can be fun too. So it depends on how you frame it. But it's important to just make the effort. And if we can't, come to some kind of understanding, we just don't get each other, that's okay. But the fact that you try, you at least try to, do something, that helps. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Scarlett says, that is the reason we are here today. Okay, so now is the perfect time to talk about what not to do. So, labeling somebody as a deaf mute, or saying, can you lip read? I'm afraid to say yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys understand that?
Yes.
Yeah, all of you guys understand me. Okay. How about this?
I can get every other word because I'm not seeing.
Quit looking
her.
away.
But you guys said you could lip read. You just told me that you could lip read. I'm confused. You said yes.
I can't see your eyes.
Ah. Okay. Let me try. Who said that?
I did. My sister's, she's very fluent in ASL, and I've been picking some up over the years a little bit, and I'm losing hearing with 20% hearing loss in each ear. So I'm trying to learn ASL and to lip read as well.
Oh, see? Yeah, so eye contact is so important. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So, okay, I'm gonna try something.
That's why I moved up here. I couldn't see you right there.
Okay, I'm gonna look at you. We're gonna try something.
You're speaking too fast.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm not that great at it yet, but I got all these. I got the beginning.
Oh, see? Oh, but you said you could, right?
I'm learning to.
See, but that is what we are going through as deaf and hard of hearing people. We can lip read some, not everything. So you have to make sure that, let's just not ask that question. That is not something that you can understand. It's really only 30% of the English language is understandable on the lips. So the rest of that, your vowels, I can't see vowels on your lips.
Also, if they speak a different language, you may not be able to read their lips if they're not speaking the same language as you.
Very good point. Good catch.
That's a second language.
Oh yeah, if you're drunk, for sure. That's another thing. I know, deaf people's voices do sound like a drunk person. I've heard that. They don't sound sober. So, think about that for a second too. And I know some, not all, but some deaf people will have a quote unquote drunk voice. Ooh, man, I can't even imagine. Whew. Okay, so now we have a game. We have a fun game. Are you ready?
Yes.
This is my favorite part. So the lip reading activity. We're gonna test your skills and see if you guys can master lip reading. Okay, so I'm gonna count you off 1 and 2s. And then, or actually no. I'm gonna count, I'm trying to think, hold on. We're gonna pair you up with a random person. And you're gonna sit together and try to practice your lip reading skills. And we're gonna pass out paper. So one person you're gonna have different copies of this paper, and you have to work together with lip reading only. You've got to read the lines, and just mouthing again. You can't sign, you can't finger spell, no cheating, no whispering. Okay? Oh, do you have a question? And I really encourage you guys to try this, we'll pass out the papers and try to get everybody grouped up as best we can so that it works out. I'm gonna count, how many, what do we have, 4 to a group, would that work, I think? What do you think, should we do 2 sets of 2? Each your turn? Okay, groups of 4, got it. So, group of 4, okay, group of 4. So we'll have A's and B's. Need one more person.
Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and take a seat, please. So, I'm curious. I would like some of you guys to go ahead and share how you felt about that. Anybody want to go ahead and share what they thought?
It wasn't easy.
Right, it's not easy. Does anybody want to come up here and go ahead and share their experience with the... Yeah, go ahead. Anyone else?
Sure, why not?
So go ahead and tell them what you experienced.
My name is Beth. My fair name is Lady Sully. Hello. Sully, Monsters Inc., all that. Okay, anyway, I had said something to Mindy earlier about the lip reading, and I did not realize about the nouns, the vowels, about the different commonalities between the different letters and the sounds. So lip reading is not that easy. So let's try not to rely on lip reading.
Yes, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, part of our journey. We can't catch every syllable, every word. Sometimes we get a few words, but, for example, yeah, it's like playing a game of Guess Who. All right, thank you.
For charades.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, your turn.
My name is Shannon. My daughter works at Faire. We've been with the troop here before for 6 years before, and I've just done odd jobs since then. But lip reading, you cannot rely on it at all. Because me and my partner were going L'Chaim, because it felt like we were trying to read somebody's lip reading and speaking Jewish at the same time, Hebrew. Okay, I was going, I started singing in Hebrew because that's what her lips moved like. So learning to sign is like the best thing you can do. Plus it's fun.
Yes, you're right, exactly. Aw, thank you for sharing. So I'm curious. Okay, so how many of you felt... Well, actually, how did you feel after that? Trying to understand those sentences. How did you feel?
Lost.
Lost, exactly. Confused, frustrated.
Or,
What else?
Or no hand signs or gestures that could help guide us, like to understand what the person
Okay.
is saying. Without hand gestures, we're basically blind. Yes, we were able to catch a couple words in that sentence, but mostly it's just blank silence, and we can't hear anything.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so now I want you to remember this feeling. Now, can you imagine if a hearing person was just talking to you and you're deaf and you cannot understand that? That's frustrating. And if you're already frustrated and then the hearing person rolls their eyes because you can't understand, so just be mindful of that. And try not to get upset with a deaf person if they can't understand you. Show some grace. Show some kindness. Please be patient. And take the time to have a conversation with that deaf person and make them feel included and make them feel valued. So remember, it's not about you. It's bigger than just you. The more that we do to provide access, the more deaf people will enjoy their experience here. Oh, I've got goosebumps because I'm finally able to actually show you what it feels like to be a deaf person and to be lost in the world. Remember, we're all in this together. So by taking this training and by taking the time to kind of understand this feeling of what it is like to be deaf, I mean, you'll never understand the deaf experience completely until you've been through that or you've experienced that through somebody with hearing loss. How would you feel if, for example, I'm trying to guess all. Well, hold on. Let's say we switched roles, and you were trying to ask me something, but I was just like, never mind. I'll tell you later. It's not important. Then I just kind of brush it off. How would you feel?
Confused. Unimportant.
Yeah.
Left out.
Left out, yes.
Anxious, confused, not important.
So if you say never mind, it doesn't matter if that information is important or not. The deaf person should be able to decide if that information is important, not just because you think it's not, so you don't want to explain it. Don't just assume that we need or don't need to know this or that. Just provide access. That's the point.
Just treat them like they're the same as everybody else. They just have an extra special.
Are you in the back?
I have 2 aunts who are deaf, so I grew up around them, and I learned to over-enunciate my words to make it easier for them to lip read. And when I would say words that they didn't understand by lip reading, I at least knew how to finger spell the word.
Great, yes. See, you found a way to fill in that gap of communication. It's important to learn sign language, and it's important to learn how to come up with a different approach. If that person, for example, is just stuck on one word that they missed or don't understand, well, you can use a different word and still give that message. Or maybe rephrase it in a different way. And then the person will be like, oh, okay, I understand. The most common words that are overlooked are the names of people and places. Maybe the name of a character, like just on the lips, that's not going to be understood all the time. So please, don't try to, I know sign language and wave my hands around. Because maybe you think that's funny, but that's not funny to a deaf person. I know how to sign. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's not funny. Just think about that.
That's
right. Right, exactly. Amen. Okay. Now, short little tidbit about sign language interpreters. Sign language interpreters are not only there for the deaf people, but they are also there for you. So remember that. And sign language interpreters, their responsibility is to interpret everything. Everything. If you tell the interpreter, oh, no, hey, don't sign that. No. Their job is to interpret everything. Background noise, everything. They have a strict code of ethics that they have to follow. They have to follow specific rules, and they have 2 different licenses usually. There's the BEI and there's the RID. and they have to take courses. I think it's 2 to 5 years of training to become a sign language interpreter. And just because somebody learns sign language doesn't mean that they're automatically qualified to interpret that communication. It takes many years of training, which is why we emphasize that we need to invest in interpreting services and caption services for access to language. Also, interpreters do take upon the role of the person. So if there's a character, for example, they will match them with their body language and facial expression and their tone of voice to show that character. If they're angry, they're going to match them. If, for example, interpreting music, that's a whole nother skill. Some interpreters are really good at that, and that's a different kind of training. There's different avenues of the interpreting world that people can go to. There's court certified interpreters. There's, for example, I'm a deaf person. Maybe I don't feel comfortable having an intern interpret for my court case, So maybe it's an investigation for murder or something, and my life depends on that court case. So I want to have a qualified interpreter in that situation. So that's really important to understand as well. Because there's also a difference between certified and qualified. ADA requires that you must have a qualified interpreter. If the deaf person says, "Oh, that interpreter is not qualified," believe them. That means that they are telling you that the deaf person, the deaf consumer, cannot understand the interpreter. And maybe the interpreter might not be qualified specifically for that client. But another deaf person, maybe they're a perfect match, and that's fine. So that interpreter may be appropriate for a certain situation and not another. So under the ADA, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. The law says, the law of 3 under ADA, any public place must make sure that they provide communication access. Successful communication access. Not just a warm body put into a place that knows, some sign. That's not access. We need successful language interpreters for effective communication. And they need to be neutral. That's very important that the interpreter is in a neutral role.
So that's the boring stuff. So what neutral role means, that is going to mean that the interpreter stays impartial. So they don't have an opinion, they can't join the conversation and give their opinion on it. They're here to facilitate communication by taking on the role of, showing the deaf person what, emotions, that what's going on in what the speaker is saying. Hold on, So the hearing person can't ask the interpreter, hey, what do you think? Or so do you think this, or do you think that, or is this deaf person qualified for the job? They cannot ask that. That is not being neutral for the interpreter. That means that they have to make sure that if the hearing person wants to know is the deaf person qualified, they need to ask the deaf person. Don't ask the interpreter. Hearing people rely on auditory input. So sometimes they'll ask the interpreter for their opinion because that's who they're talking to, quote unquote. But that's if you want to know what a deaf person thinks, ask the deaf person yourself. You have your hand up? Okay, oh, thank you. Heather made a comment. She said, please don't, say, tell her, tell them. Don't do that. Just say what you want to say. Just talk directly with eye contact. Talk to the deaf person. Don't look at the interpreter. Look at the deaf person. And just talk. Rely on your hearing, input, but talk to the deaf person. Okay, I hope that's clear. Other tip I wanted to give you guys is deaf people do not need to be fixed. Don't tell a deaf person, oh, well, why don't you use, a cochlear implant, or why don't you have a hearing aid, because you can't hear me. Hearing aids are great, but there's always a but. It's not effective in a noisy environment, or maybe, you're catching things piecemeal, you're not getting everything. And I've been told, I don't wear hearing aids, but I've been told that hearing aids just, up the volume, they amplify sound. That's it. It doesn't always mean that is connected to understanding clearly. Oh, yeah.
I wear hearing aids sometimes on occasion, and she's right. The hearing aids just up the sound, and out here, especially in Faire, I just turn them off at that point because it's too loud with it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm so glad that there's someone here who's experienced wearing hearing aids. And it can be so much harder to, get the communication and appreciate what you do catch because everything is so loud.
And that's even on the lowest setting.
Mm-hmm. Great. You're so right. Okay. And even the most sophisticated technology that we have still doesn't give 100% access and clear communication. So, and just make sure, that responsibility is on the individual person for communication. And I think that is everything for me. Am I missing anything? Are we good? We're good? Okay, great. Thank you. You guys, thank you so much for having me. I just enjoy the festival. Huzzah!
Wow. Thank you very much, everybody. So, was that a learning experience for us?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How about somebody here before I wrap it up? Somebody in your own words, what was the biggest learning for you today?
The lip reading.
The lip reading.
Lip reading? Thank you. Any
How to
others?
communicate more effectively.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think a lot of this wasn't for the deaf people, it's for us to be more comfortable with them, not them to be more comfortable with us. You're welcome, Scarlett.
It was an eye-opening for myself in a lot of ways because I imagined myself on how I, in past situations, I have reacted to people. And I was guilty of all the wrong things. But in my intentions, I really felt at that time I was doing the right thing. So again, I think the big learning from this is we always think we know everything, but today it gave us an opportunity to look at something a lot differently, and we now have a different appreciation for that, and that's what makes us great people. We've got some of the best people working here in this room, and sincerely I say that because it doesn't get said a lot. You make this fair come to life. With this little bit of extra stuff we help to bring to you, we can make this place even better. And think about that. It's a big world out there. I just read something the other day. 25 million people in Texas. 25 million people.
That's too much.
We got like 45 of them in this room who elected today to do this. Could have been doing a whole lot of other things, but you found the interest to come and do it. So hopefully what you can do now is inspire others and share what we've learned here because I talked with Scarlett earlier. We always go around and we put in like a memorial tree at the site, and we watch that tree grow. And I can remember some of the trees in the memorial garden when we planted them 10 years ago. Today, we planted a seed for ASL. I may not see it in my lifetime, but hopefully sometime in 2050, there'll be a room of people here talking about it, and now the room will be packed. So, you really do create a destiny, and you really do make an impact. Thank you all for coming. Pizza should be here in a little bit. I'll turn it back over to Scarlett. Thank you all.
I have like emotions.
So much feels, let's go.
So many feels though.
So many students.
Do you feel like this was helpful?
Yes.
Yes.
This was fantastic, Scarlett.
Please.
Can we teach this in all high schools for all the teenagers that wear the earbuds that can't listen to their parents?
For those and everyone else, I decree right now, yes. I've decided.
I'm right here.
Yes.
Some of these are actually working the high school kindergarten, starting in and coming down to Houston as of this year will be actual ASL training classes.
James, they couldn't hear you back there, come forward.
We will actually have training classes in high schools now to teach kids how to sign language to kids who are hearing impaired.
Did you say hearing impaired?
That's how they said it in the law.
When we know better, we do better.
Oh, Kitten! Can you say that again, please?
When we know better, we do better.
Yes. So the law may say, oh, I'm gonna put my hands down. I know better. The law may say it, but we know better, right? Awesome, thank you. Who needs interpreters, really? Who are interpreters for?
Everybody.
Everybody, that's a good answer. Yes?
Hearing people.
Hearing people! Yeah, we need them a lot more than deaf people need them. And that's why the interpreters need to be neutral. And that's why when we come here and we work this fair, we create the culture here. And that's why we're here today, is because we are integrating a culture of access and of equitability into Sherwood. We're a huge community here. It's very clear that we have a wide array of people and beliefs and styles here. And internalizing this information, when we know better, we do better. We can carry this forward, not only during ASL weekend, which I may be a little biased, is the best weekend of the fair, but all through the season and every season. We're recording this today. You see all the equipment around because we're keeping this training and we're moving forward. Every single year this will be required. And that takes me to my next point, is that after this, firstly, we're gonna take a group photo because I can't even believe we got to do this, and I'm so proud and excited and grateful that so many of you showed up and you're invested and you're helping us build this and move this forward. This is what's putting Sherwood on the map in an even bigger spot, right? Access, equitability, and really just an inviting place. That's what people say about Sherwood when we try to talk about Sherwood to other people. It's a community here. It's not just a theme park. We are a community. And we are widening and spreading the reach of that community in a really positive, loving way. And that starts with trainings and things like today.
It starts here.
Right, it starts here, and that means it has to start with individuals. And I've got like 40 of them today to go plant more little acorn seeds to grow into mighty oaks, right?
Yeah.
So we are gonna get a quick group photo. I even have the ASL program mascot. He's been in storage for like 3 years, so he's back. He's an adorable teddy bear. I will absolutely proudly show him to you. And then we're gonna actually break up into groups based on the departments that you work for Faire. We've got 10 to 15 signs that are gonna be learned, and then we'll keep moving forward, and I'll come like randomly talk to you. And then after that, we'll have pizza, and we can practice those signs, and then we will come back and have a little game where there may or may not be candy thrown at you.
Yeah, kid.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Please don't throw candy.
I mean, if she's into it. Yes.
I would love to insert myself.
Please. Okay, so we have Jen here. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
I did say I'm ADHD, right? We have Jen here, who is Vice President? Vice President of the Deafblind Camp of Texas. Because this year, Sherwood is also welcoming and integrating the deafblind community into Sherwood. Yes. So she's gonna come up. If you have questions, you're welcome to answer those. You're welcome to ask her those, and she'll answer them. But let her get through her few points first, and then we will take our photo.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jen is her name. Did I say that?
Nikki and Laura. Jen. Because this slick right here. Ooh, the feels. The feels. I can't decide what language to use. Yeah, hands in pockets. Hands in pockets. First of all, thank you. Thanks for giving me, just a little bit of your time. I know that this is already a long-ish training session. But I just kind of wanted to throw out that with our deafblind folks that are going to be coming, it's not going to be a big group. There's probably going to be 20 of us all together for the weekend. Some are going to be camping, some won't be. The two main points that I wanted to make are that, number one, deafblind people are people. They're not some leopard disease, something that you can't touch. You can touch them. And in fact, with consent as the Zoan culture, that's actually encouraged is for you as people in and around Sherwood, that spirit of inclusivity includes touching the deafblind people to let them know that you care about them and that you want to engage with them. It does not matter that you may or may not know how to sign, or maybe you don't know how to sign well. Saying hi is a big deal because this is something that they don't get every day. They don't get most days. So anything that you can do to help them feel more included here is highly encouraged. The other thing is that with all of these deafblind people that you will see, they will be accompanied, every time you see them, they will probably be accompanied by a person who is functioning as what we call a co-navigator. The abbreviation is CN, co-navigator. A word that used to be used was support service provider. That word is becoming obsolete. But what that means is a deafblind person who is otherwise full well capable of doing anything and everything on their own except see and hear to varying degrees, needs a co-navigator to inform them about their environment and the world around them. So, hey, this is the layout of all of the shops. Which one do you want to go to? That's the kind of conversation a co-navigator would have. Oh, I've noticed on the schedule today that these are the shows that are interpreted. Which one would you like to go to? Cool, we'll go to that one at 2 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, when they arrive at whatever theater is showing whatever show that they wanted to see, the co-navigator is going to take a moment to describe everything around. What the stage looks like, what the audience looks like, who's coming out on stage, what are their clothes that they're wearing, what kind of props do they have? And then they're going to go into everything else about the show and interpret what's going on. Not just the words, but also the action.
I love watching the interpreters with Opal and Jade.
It's a really, really cool experience. But I just wanted to give you that knowledge to know what that person is there for. This is not a helper. This is not, oh, you poor deafblind person, I'm gonna do all of these things for you because I'm nice. No, this is a person who's just going about the world with them and saying, hey, I noticed that the sky is really blue today. And wow, these trees look fantastic with this canopy coming together. Or, oh my gosh, I saw this person and they're wearing the coolest costume. Those are the kinds of things that the co-navigator is going to be giving to this deafblind person who doesn't have access to that on their own. Outside of that, they have varying needs for communication. They might use ASL visually. They might use ASL tactily. They may use a language called protactile, which is brilliant and beautiful, and I love it. And it looks really weird from the outside perspective. It's a whole lot of touching. And it looks inappropriate, I promise you it's not. They also might use spoken English. We have a lot of folks who have cochlear implants that
they have a progressive disease or they have something else that's going on, that they can access spoken language more easily than they can some sort of signed language. So for those people, it might look a little bit more like what you envision when you think about a blind person engaging with the world. So they're feeding all of the same information to them, but through spoken English verbally. But you're still gonna see them, may I touch you for a moment? You still might see them have a hand on their shoulder. This means I'm here and I'm present with you. I don't need your attention, I'm just here. And then maybe the co-navigator will be whispering in their ear or telling them things like, oh man, I saw this costume over here, it looks really cool. It's a whole wolf. This right here means I am here in this world with you. That's it. I'm with you. And for a person who is deafblind, that doesn't happen often or ever out in public like this, in public spaces. So having somebody that's being able to just reach that hand out and make that physical connection, without that, you've disappeared. You're gone. You don't exist. So that's really all I wanted to say. Any questions about working with deafblind folks, please send them my way. I'm happy to answer anything either in a group forum or one-on-one throughout the rest of our stuff here.
Any questions? No? All right.